Listen here, you bitch. You'll sign over your $5 million inheritance to my mother and the condo to my father. Otherwise, we're getting divorced. An ugly nobody like you won't be wanted by anyone except me, my husband brazenly declared, already imagining how he and his mother would take everything from me. But I surprised them both in a big way. The phone vibrated in her scrub's pocket right at the moment when Lisa Reynolds was administering epinephrine to a patient in cardiac arrest. The ICU was frantic, monitors beeping, defibrillator charging, a young resident nervously hovering by the four-line. She didn't even glance at the screen. Right now, every second determined whether this 40-year-old man would survive or his wife would become a widow. 20 minutes later, when a steady rhythm finally appeared on the monitor, Lisa peeled off her gloves and only then checked her phone. Unknown number, voicemail. She listened to it standing by the break room window and felt the ground disappear from under her feet. Attorney David Morrison introduced himself in a formal, businesslike tone. Your godmother, Helen Patterson, passed away 3 weeks ago. According to her will, you're inheriting $5 million and a 2-bedroom condo in downtown Chicago. Please contact our office to begin the paperwork process at your convenience. Lisa replayed the message 3 times. Godmother Helen. They hadn't seen each other in 15 years. Not since her mother's funeral. Helen had approached her then, hugged her, said something about strength and dignity, left a business card with her phone number. Lisa never called. Life swept her away into work in the ICU, marriage, endless shifts, trying to make ends meet on 2 modest incomes. $5 million. The amount seemed impossible. She earned $60,000 a year. Her husband, Brad, a manager at a small construction company, made about $75,000. They rented a 1-bedroom apartment for $2,000 a month on the outskirts of the city. They'd been saving for a down payment on a house for 4 years, but had only managed to scrape together $28,000. And now, $5 million. Lisa returned to the ICU and spent the rest of her shift on autopilot. Her hands performed their tasks, checking 4 lines, administering medications, documenting vital signs, but her mind was elsewhere. Why had Helen left everything to her? Helen had nephews, colleagues, friends. Lisa was just a goddaughter she'd barely communicated with in recent years. She got home around 9 in the evening, exhausted and confused. Brad sat on the couch with his laptop, reviewing project estimates. He looked up and flashed that charming smile that had won her over at a company party 5 years ago. How was your shift? Okay, we saved one. She kicked off her sneakers at the door, walked to the kitchen and filled the kettle. She needed to tell her husband about the call, but something inside resisted. Her ICU nurse's intuition, trained to read the slightest changes in a patient's condition, whispered, "Don't rush. Verify the information first. Make sure this isn't a scam. Don't get his hopes up prematurely. Why do you look so distant?" Brad came up behind her, kissed her neck. Lisa tensed. He was rarely this affectionate without a reason. Just tired. Long day. Go to bed. I'll finish up and join you. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling for a long time, listening to Brad moving around the kitchen, loading the dishwasher. A good husband, he helped around the house. Didn't drink excessively, didn't cheat. Though in 5 years of marriage, they'd never had children. They kept postponing it, waiting for their financial situation to improve. Brad's mother, Carol, frequently hinted that it was time for grandchildren, but she also constantly complained about being tight on money herself. The next day, Lisa took a personal day and drove to the attorney's office. The address was downtown in an older building with marble floors and mahogany paneling. Morrison, a man in his early 60s with silver hair and rimless glasses, greeted her professionally. Helen Patterson was extremely meticulous. She created this 2 years ago and never amended it once. He pulled a folder from a file cabinet and spread documents across his desk. $5 million in investment accounts, a 2-bedroom condominium on Michigan Avenue, approximately 1,200 square feet, owned free and clear. Everything transfers to you after estate taxes and paperwork processing. The entire process should take about 6 to 8 weeks. Lisa stared at the papers, still unable to believe it. Why me? She had other family. The attorney opened another folder and withdrew an envelope. She specifically asked me to give you this. The envelope was heavy cream-colored stock with embossed initials. Inside was a letter in elegant cursive handwriting. Dear Lisa, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I want to explain my decision. I've spent my whole life observing people, and I've learned one fundamental truth. Money reveals a person's true character. I followed your life through social media. I occasionally called your mother and asked about you. You chose a demanding profession. Work in the ICU saving lives for modest pay. Got married. Live simply, never complain. Not once in all these years did you ask me for money, even though you knew I could help. My nephews were different. They regularly wrote and called asking for money, for tuition, medical bills, business ventures. I gave, but then I discovered the truth. The money went to entertainment, expensive cars, luxury vacations. I grew tired of feeding these parasites. You're different. You're strong. You know how to take life's punches without losing yourself. That's why everything I have is yours. Use it wisely. And remember, when someone suddenly has money, people immediately appear who want to control it. Stay vigilant. Your godmother, Helen. Lisa folded the letter and tucked it in her purse. Her hands trembled slightly. Helen was right. Money changes everything, including the people around you. She returned home around 6 that evening. Brad wasn't back from work yet. Lisa made coffee and sat by the window. She needed to decide whether to tell her husband. On one hand, they were married. They should share everything. On the other hand, something told her, don't rush. Brad came home at 7:30, cheerful and energized. Lisa, I've got news. They promoted me to senior project manager. She hugged him, congratulated him. He was beaming. The raise is only $12,000 a year, but it's a start. Maybe in a year I can aim for assistant director. They sat in the kitchen, drinking coffee, while Brad made plans. Maybe now we can finally get serious about buying a house. I'm so tired of renting. I want something that's ours. Lisa nodded, half listening. Her phone suddenly buzzed. Unknown number. She glanced at the screen, decided not to answer, but it rang again immediately. What the hell? Brad frowned. Just answer it. Lisa reluctantly picked up. Lisa Reynolds speaking. This is Morrison and Associates. You forgot to pick up copies of some documents. When can you come by? She covered the phone with her palm, but it was too late. Brad was watching her with narrowed eyes. Thanks, I'll stop by tomorrow. After hanging up, Lisa turned to face her husband. His expression showed intense curiosity. An attorney? What's going on? She sighed. She'd have to tell him. My godmother died. She left me an inheritance. Brad sat up straight, set down his mug. What inheritance? Money and a condo. How much money? $5 million. Silence filled the room. Brad stared at her as if she'd just announced she was moving to Mars. Then slowly, very slowly, he smiled. And there was something in that smile that made Lisa's blood run cold. Are you serious? Yes. He jumped up, came around the table, and hugged her so tightly she could barely breathe. Jesus, Lisa, do you realize what this means? We're set for life. We can buy a house, no, a mansion, new cars. We can have everything we've ever wanted. She carefully extracted herself from his embrace. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. I still have to go through probate. What probate? When do we actually get the money? About 6 to 8 weeks. Brad grabbed a notepad and pen, sat down at the table with renewed intensity. Okay, let's plan this out. We'll need a good house, at least 4 bedrooms, so my parents have somewhere to stay when they visit. That'll run us. What, 700,000? Maybe a million for something really nice. I want a decent truck, maybe an F-250, that's 60,000. And we'll need to renovate whatever we buy, so figure another 150,000 for that. Lisa listened as he rattled off items, and with each passing second a cold realization grew inside her. He kept saying, we'll get, we'll buy, we need, not you, not your decision, but we. Brad continued scribbling in his notepad, completely absorbed in calculations. And we need to help Mom. She spent her whole life supporting me and my brother. It's time we took care of her. 300,000 should be enough to get her out of that crappy apartment and into something decent. Lisa felt something tighten in her chest. He'd already allocated more than half the money in 10 minutes, without asking her opinion once. Brad, let's talk about this tomorrow. I'm exhausted. He looked up from his notepad, surprised. Why tomorrow? This is our future. We need to plan. We'll plan, but not tonight. She stood up, walked to the bathroom, closed and locked the door, turned on the shower, and stared at her reflection for a long time. Pale face, dark circles under her eyes from constant night shifts. An ordinary 38-year-old woman, a nurse worn down by life. And suddenly $5 million. Helen was right. Money changes people. In 10 minutes, Brad had transformed into someone else. His eyes gleamed with greed. He hadn't even asked about Helen, hadn't expressed any condolences. Only money, only plans. The next morning, Brad woke up first, which was unusual. He typically loved sleeping in. Lisa opened her eyes to find him sitting on the edge of the bed with his phone. Who are you calling? My mom. I need to tell her. Don't. Not yet. Why not? She'll be thrilled. Brad, please, let's not tell anyone until the money actually comes through. He frowned but nodded. Fine. Whatever you want. Lisa drove to her shift with a heavy feeling in her chest. The ICU was unusually quiet, one of those rare occasions when you could actually catch your breath. Her colleague and closest friend, Sarah, immediately noticed something was wrong. What's up with you? You look miserable. Lisa had intended to brush it off, but then decided to confide in Sarah. They'd worked together for 7 years, pulled countless patients back from death's door, grieved together when they couldn't save someone. My godmother died and left me an inheritance. Sarah whistled when she heard the amount. Holy shit, that's incredible luck. I don't know if it's luck. Brad's already planned out everything. Took him 10 minutes. Sarah's expression turned knowing. Want to know how long it took my ex when I won 300,000 in the lottery? 5 minutes. He'd already bought a new TV and gaming system in his head. A month later, he left me for another woman when I refused to buy him a car. Lisa fell silent, thinking, You think? I think money is the ultimate test of character. Now you'll see who people really are. That evening, Lisa came home to find Brad wasn't alone. Sitting in their small one-bedroom apartment was Carol, his mother, a heavy-set woman in her mid-60s with dyed auburn hair and a permanently dissatisfied expression. She disliked Lisa from day one, convinced her son could have done better. Well, here's our hard-working daughter-in-law. Carol smiled, and the expression made Lisa deeply uncomfortable. Her mother-in-law had never smiled at her before. Good evening. Bradley told me about your good fortune. What amazing luck. Lisa shot Brad a meaningful look. He avoided her eyes guiltily. Mom figured it out herself. I accidentally let something slip. Carol patted the couch cushion beside her. Sit down, sweetie. Let's discuss plans. It wasn't a request, it was a command. Lisa slowly lowered herself into the chair across from them. Here's what I'm thinking. You two need a bigger place. You're young. You'll want children. I've been looking at listings. There's a beautiful 4-bedroom in a new development, about 900,000. Expensive, sure, but excellent layout. I'd have my own room there. You'd have your master suite, plus a nursery and a family room. Lisa felt everything inside her contract. You'd have a room? Well, of course, I'd move in with you. My apartment is impossible, paper-thin walls, noisy neighbors. And this way I can help with grandchildren. Plus, I'll have peace and quiet. Brad nodded enthusiastically, agreeing with every word. Mom's right. We need more space anyway, and it would really help her out. Lisa stayed silent. They'd already decided everything. Behind her back, without her input. Her money, her inheritance. But somehow they were making all the decisions. Carol continued developing her theme. And you need decent vehicles. Bradley driving that old Civic is embarrassing. And I was thinking, maybe I should get a small SUV too. I still have my license, and it would be so convenient for running errands. Lisa stood up. Excuse me, I need some air. She went to the bathroom, turned on the shower, and stood under the hot water trying to calm herself. They thought she was a pushover, that she'd obediently nod and distribute money left and right. Her mother-in-law, who'd treated her like hired help for 5 years, was suddenly warm and caring. Her husband, who'd never particularly cared about her opinion, suddenly wanted to discuss everything. When she emerged, Carol had left. Brad sat on the couch, looking pleased with himself. Mom's got it all figured out. She's really thought this through. Lisa sat across from him. Brad, this is my money. He blinked, confused. Yeah, yours. So, I'll be the one deciding how to use it. We're married. We should make decisions together. Make decisions together, yes. But the final call is mine. Brad's expression darkened. Why are you being difficult? We're planning for our benefit. Whose benefit? Your mother wants to move in with us. You've already mentally bought yourself a truck. Nobody's asked me what I want. He stood up, moved closer. Lisa, don't be childish. I understand this is overwhelming, but let's be reasonable. Money like this needs to be invested properly. I'll figure out how to invest it myself. She went to bed, turning away from him. Brad tossed and turned for a long time, sighing heavily, but she didn't respond. The next day, while Lisa was at work, Carol's friend, Margaret, called her. Lisa, dear, congratulations on your wonderful news. Carol told me everything. We absolutely must get together and talk. I have a friend who's a realtor. I can show you some fantastic properties. Lisa suppressed her irritation. Thank you, but I'm very busy right now. Oh, honey, you can spare 5 minutes. These opportunities won't last. I don't need a realtor, but surely you can't handle this alone. I'll manage. Goodbye. Lisa hung up and understood it had begun. Carol had already broadcast the news to everyone she knew. Now they'd start calling, dropping by, offering advice. Everyone would suddenly become so helpful and concerned. That evening, she stopped by a real estate office and checked prices. A decent 2-bedroom in a good neighborhood ran about $600,000. A 3-bedroom around $800,000 to $1 million, and a 4-bedroom like Carol wanted would cost at least $1 million too. Then she visited an attorney, found a family law firm with excellent reviews, and made an appointment. The lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s, listened attentively. Inheritance is your separate property under state law. It won't be divided in a divorce, but there are complications. If you commingle the funds, for example, put them toward a house titled in both names, your spouse could claim a portion in divorce proceedings. Lisa nodded carefully. And if I buy a property solely in my name? Then it remains yours. Your husband has no legal claim to it. What if he objects? He can object all he wants. Legally, it's your property to do with as you choose. Lisa left the attorney's office feeling lighter. The money really was hers alone. No one could force her to spend it against her will. At home, Brad was waiting with a stack of real estate magazines and printouts. Look at these houses I found. This one's gorgeous, 2,500 square feet, 4 bedrooms, 3 baths. Lisa glanced at the printout. $1.3 million. It's expensive, but totally worth it. Mom would have her own space. We'd have room for kids, separate home office. Brad, I don't want your mother living with us. He froze. Why not? Because I want our home to be just ours. We're adults. We don't need a live-in babysitter. She's not a babysitter. She's my mother. Exactly why she should have her own place. Brad threw the magazines onto the coffee table. I get it. You're being selfish. I'm not being selfish. I just don't want to live with your mother. What about family? What about helping our parents? You can help without living together. He turned and stormed into the bedroom, slamming the door. Lisa gathered up the magazines and stacked them neatly. The first fight, and clearly not the last. That night, she woke up thirsty and went to the kitchen for water. She heard Brad talking quietly on his phone in the hallway. Mom, she's being stubborn. Says she doesn't want you living with us. I don't know what to do. The lawyer said inheritance is her separate property. But if I can convince her to buy a house in both our names, then in a divorce I'd get half. No, I don't want a divorce, just covering my bases. Mom, you understand this kind of money. Lisa froze by the doorway. So he'd already consulted an attorney, already planning for divorce, already calculating how to claim half, all behind her back. She quietly returned to the bedroom and lay down. Her heart pounded. Brad, her husband, the man she'd lived with for 5 years, was discussing with his mother how best to get her money, even considering divorce if he couldn't manipulate her into compliance. The next morning, Lisa woke early while Brad still slept. She dressed, grabbed her purse, and left. She went to a different bank, opened a new account he wouldn't know about, then visited another attorney specializing in divorce, learned every detail about property division and protecting separate assets, gathered documents, made copies of everything important. When she returned home late afternoon, Brad sat in the kitchen with his mother and a woman Lisa vaguely recognized. Oh, Lisa, this is Marissa, Brad's sister. Lisa knew about Brad's sister, but had only met her twice in 5 years of marriage. Marissa lived in another state, bounced between bartending and retail jobs, constantly changing cities. According to Brad, his sister was a free spirit. Hey, Marissa flashed a bright smile. Heard about your incredible luck. That's amazing. Lisa cautiously greeted her. I came to visit for a week or so. Got tired of Phoenix, wanted to see family. The week turned into indefinite residence. Marissa camped on their couch, scattered her belongings throughout the one-bedroom apartment, and acted like she owned the place. She raided the refrigerator first thing every morning, talked loudly on her phone until midnight, and on her third day there they had a family dinner. Carol brought casseroles, Brad ordered pizza. They sat around the small dining table while Lisa felt like she was being interrogated. Sweetie, Carol began, we've been talking and we think you need to act quickly. The real estate market's heating up. Better to buy now before prices climb even higher. Marissa nodded eagerly. Totally. And actually, I could really use some help too. I want to open my own business, a boutique fitness studio. I'd need about $150,000 for space and equipment. Lisa slowly set down her fork. You want me to give you $150,000. Not give, help out. I'm family. Brad jumped in to support his sister. It's not that much, Lisa. For you, it's basically nothing. Lisa looked at all three of them. Carol smiled encouragingly. Marissa watched expectantly. Brad nodded like this was completely reasonable. I'll think about it. What's there to think about? Marissa's voice rose. You have millions. You can't help out family. Lisa stood up. Excuse me, I have a headache. She retreated to the bathroom, locked the door, and turned on the water. They'd conspired together, all three of them. Thought she'd crumble under pressure, hand out money, and be grateful for the opportunity to help. Over the next few days, Brad became increasingly pushy. Every evening, he'd bring up the house, the vehicles, helping his mother and sister. Lisa responded vaguely, said she was still considering options, but his patience was wearing thin. "Why are you dragging your feet?" he demanded one evening when they were alone. "Has the money transferred yet?" "Not yet." "When?" "Soon. 6 to 8 weeks, remember." "Lisa, we need to make decisions about the house. I've already scheduled appointments with a realtor for this weekend. We're looking at several properties. I didn't schedule anything. I scheduled for both of us. Brad, this is my money. I decide how to spend it." He sighed and rubbed his temples. "We're married. Or have you forgotten?" "I haven't forgotten. But that doesn't mean I have to do what you and your family want. We want what's best for us." "No, you want what's best for yourselves." Brad's face reddened. "What are you even saying? I'm your husband." "And what does that mean?" "That you have the right to manage my money. That I have the right to participate in major decisions affecting our family." "Participate, yes. But I make the final decision." He stared at her incredulously. "You've changed. You never used to be like this." "I didn't used to have $5 million. And I didn't know you could be like this." Lisa went to the bathroom, leaving him alone. She heard him calling his mother, complaining that his wife was being impossible. Carol said something in response. Brad agreed, emphatically. The next day, while Lisa was on shift, she found something in Brad's messenger bag, a printout from an attorney's office. Consultation regarding marital property division in divorce proceedings. Dated 1 week before she'd received news about Helen's death. He knew. Somehow he'd known about the inheritance in advance and had been preparing. Lisa photographed the document and replaced it exactly where she'd found it. Her hands shook with fury. So this had all been an act, his excitement, his plans, his declarations of love. He'd been positioning himself to claim her money before she even knew it existed. That evening, she sat down with her laptop and started investigating. She found the attorney's website, expensive specialist in high-asset divorces. Brad had paid serious money for that consultation. Then she found text messages in his phone. He'd left it charging in the bedroom. Messages with Carol. "Mom, I found out Helen Patterson died. She's leaving everything to Lisa. We need to move fast. Honey, just convince her to buy a house in both names. Then when you divorce, you'll get half." "I'll try, but she's stubborn." "She's not stubborn. She's stupid. Thinks she's smart. We'll work on her." Lisa read the exchange and felt cold rage building inside. They were discussing her, planning how to deceive her, calling her stupid. Her husband and mother-in-law. People she'd considered family. She returned the phone exactly where she'd found it. Everything was clear now. This was war and she was ready. The next day, Lisa transferred the inheritance funds to the new bank account. She made copies of all critical documents and stored them at Sarah's house. She consulted with 2 more attorneys, found a furnished rental near the hospital, and told the landlord she might need to move in on short notice. Everything was prepared for her escape, but she wasn't leaving yet. She wanted to see how far they'd go, how brazen they'd become. Brad came home looking satisfied. "Lisa, we're going house hunting tomorrow. I've set everything up. Mom's coming too. She'll help us choose." Lisa nodded calmly. "All right." He looked startled. "Really? You're okay with it?" "With looking, yes. But I'm making the final decision." Brad smiled, clearly believing she'd finally given in. Of course. We're just looking." Lisa went to bed thinking, they believe they've won. They think I've broken. But they're wrong. I just want to see exactly how far they'll go. And then I'll show them who I really am. The morning began with Carol calling at 7 a.m. Lisa had just fallen asleep after a night shift when her mother-in-law's demanding voice pierced through her rest. "Lisa, dear, we're meeting the realtor at 10 o'clock. Dress nicely. This is an important occasion." Lisa declined the call, silenced her phone, and tried to fall back asleep. 5 minutes later, someone knocked insistently on the door. Brad answered and let his mother in. Carol marched into the bedroom and threw open the curtains. Rise and shine. No time for sleeping when there's business to handle. Lisa slowly sat up, looking at her mother-in-law with exhausted eyes. Carol, I worked all night. I need sleep. You can sleep later. Looking at houses is more important right now. Her mother-in-law was already bustling around the kitchen, making coffee, pulling food from the refrigerator, acting like she owned the place. Brad stood nearby nodding along, shooting reproachful looks at Lisa. Come on, hurry up. We can't be late. Lisa silently got dressed, jeans, a sweater, sneakers. Carol looked her over disapprovingly. You should wear something nicer. At least put on some heels. I'm comfortable like this. The realtor met them at a new luxury development in the suburbs. A polished woman in her 30s with perfect teeth and an iPad full of listings. She shook Brad's hand warmly, nodded to Carol, and barely acknowledged Lisa. Come on in. I'm excited to show you this property. 4 bedrooms, 3.5 baths, 2,800 square feet, granite countertops, hardwood floors throughout. The house really was beautiful, spacious, bright, with vaulted ceilings and a chef's kitchen. Carol immediately started claiming rooms. This one will be mine, it gets the morning sun. And this smaller one can be the nursery. Here's the formal living room, and this is your master suite back here. The realtor nodded enthusiastically, taking notes. Brad walked through admiring every detail, clearly already seeing himself living there. Lisa stood by the window looking out at the manicured lawn. $1.3 million, more than a quarter of her inheritance, for a house where her mother-in-law had already picked out the best bedroom for herself. So, what do you think? The realtor turned to Brad. It's perfect. We'll take it. Lisa turned from the window. No, we won't. All 3 stared at her. What do you mean, no? Carol's eyes narrowed. I mean, we're not buying this house. Why not? Brad moved closer, reaching for her hand. It's exactly what we need. It's too expensive and too big for what we actually need. The realtor quickly interjected. I have other listings. There's a lovely 3-bedroom that might. Carol cut her off. Why would we look at a 3-bedroom? 4 bedrooms is the minimum for a proper family home. What family? Lisa pulled her hand away from Brad's grip. There's just the 2 of us. What about me? Carol pressed her hand to her chest dramatically. Am I not family? You have your own apartment. But I want to live with you. It makes sense. I can help with grandchildren. We can all support each other. Lisa looked at Brad directly. Do you really want your mother living with us? He hesitated, unsure how to respond. Carol answered for him. Of course he does. What kind of son doesn't want to take care of his mother? There are other ways to help, Lisa said quietly. She walked out of the house without waiting for their reactions. Behind her, she heard Carol expressing outrage to the realtor, heard Brad apologizing and promising to convince his wife. Lisa descended the front steps and stood on the sidewalk, breathing deeply. A few minutes later, Brad and Carol emerged. Carol's face was flushed with anger. You embarrass me in front of a complete stranger. I simply said I wasn't buying that house. You're a selfish, ungrateful girl, only thinking about yourself. Lisa turned to face her mother-in-law, squarely. Carol, this is my money. I decide how to spend it, and I'm not buying a house where you'll be living with us. Carol's face turned purple. How dare you speak to me that way? I'm your elder. You owe me respect. You're nobody to me. You're my husband's mother. Nothing more. Brad grabbed Lisa's shoulder, spun her around. You need to apologize to my mother right now. For what? For being disrespectful. Lisa shook off his hand. Don't touch me, and don't tell me what to do. She walked to the parking lot, got in her car and drove away, leaving them standing on the sidewalk. In the car, she turned on her phone. 10 missed calls from Brad, 5 from Carol, 3 from Marissa. She turned it back off. At home, Lisa changed into comfortable clothes and collapsed on the couch. Her head throbbed from exhaustion and stress. She closed her eyes but couldn't sleep. Her mind raced. They wouldn't stop. They'd keep pushing, demanding, manipulating. Carol wouldn't forgive this public rejection. Brad would retaliate for being humiliated. 3 hours later, someone pounded on the door. Lisa didn't answer. The knocking continued insistently. Then she heard a key turning in the lock. Brad entered, followed by Carol and Marissa. "We need to talk," Brad announced, walking into the living room. Lisa remained seated on the couch. "I don't want to talk." "Too bad. We're talking anyway." Carol settled into the armchair like it was a throne. Marissa leaned against the wall. Brad sat on the coffee table directly in front of Lisa. "You're being unreasonable," he began. "We're your family. We're trying to help you make smart decisions. I'm an adult. I make my own decisions." "Obviously not very good ones," Carol interjected. "You're refusing a beautiful home. Won't help family members who need you." Marissa chimed in. "I only need $150,000. For you, that's pocket change, but for me, it's a chance to build something real." Lisa looked at each of them in turn. "You actually think I'm just going to hand out money to all of you?" "Why not?" Marissa's voice turned sharp. "You've got millions sitting there while the rest of us struggle. I'm not responsible for your financial problems. But you could help. You could change our lives." "No, I can't." Heavy silence filled the room. Brad clenched his fists. "Lisa, we're trying to do this the nice way. Don't force us to take other measures." "What measures?" He didn't answer, just stared at her darkly. Carol stood up. "Fine, we'll see about this." All 3 left, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the frame. Lisa sat alone, heart racing. The threat had been clear. They would escalate. The next day, Lisa went to her bank to verify her accounts. The manager, a middle-aged man, pulled up her information and frowned slightly. "Your husband came by yesterday trying to get account details." Lisa felt ice in her veins. "What did you tell him?" "Nothing. Without your written authorization, we can't release information to anyone, even spouses. But I should mention he was quite insistent. He wanted to be added to the account and become a joint holder." Lisa immediately set up additional security measures, changed all passwords and PINs, and explicitly instructed the bank that under no circumstances should anyone accept or access any information about her accounts. That evening, Brad confronted her the moment she walked through the door. "You went to the bank. Why?" "To check on things." "And you blocked me from accessing the accounts?" "Your own husband." "They're my accounts. My inheritance. I'm your husband. I have the right to know about our finances." "No, you don't. Not about this." Brad grabbed her wrist, squeezing hard. "Have you lost your mind? You think I'm going to let you control everything." Lisa wrenched her arm free and stepped back. "Don't ever grab me like that again." "Or what? You'll divorce me." He laughed bitterly. "Go ahead. My lawyer says I can claim a substantial portion, especially if you've been making financial decisions that affect our marital property." "Inheritance isn't marital property." "My lawyer disagrees." "Your lawyer is wrong." Lisa went to the bathroom and locked the door. She sat on the edge of the tub, holding her head in her hands. He was getting closer to using physical force. She could see it in his eyes. The rage, the greed, the absolute certainty that she'd eventually break. But she wouldn't break. A week later, the situation escalated dramatically. Carol allegedly had a health crisis, or more accurately, staged one. She called Brad at 3 in the morning, claiming chest pains and difficulty breathing. saying she was terrified of dying alone. Brad rushed to her apartment and called an ambulance. He woke Lisa at dawn. "Mom's in the hospital. This is your fault. All your refusals and disrespect stressed her out so much it triggered a cardiac episode." Lisa said nothing, knowing it was likely theater. Carol was fundamentally healthy and highly dramatic. That morning, Brad dragged her to the hospital. Carol lay in a bed looking pale and weak, and 4 in her arm. Marissa sat beside her playing the devoted daughter. "Oh, Lisa." Carol reached out weakly. "I'm so glad you came. I thought I might never see you again." Brad stood behind Lisa, hands on her shoulders. "Mom's really sick. The doctors say she needs to avoid all stress. No more upset." Lisa silently observed her mother-in-law, who closed her eyes and moaned softly for effect. "I'm so afraid of dying alone. I just want to know my son is taken care of, that he has a proper home and family who loves him." Marissa dabbed at her eyes. "Mom, don't talk like that. You're going to be fine." "I'll be fine if I know Bradley's secure, if I know his family is supporting him properly." Lisa turned and walked out of the hospital room. She heard Carol gasping dramatically behind her, heard Brad hurrying after her. "You're heartless," he caught up to her in the hallway. "My mother's seriously ill, and you don't even care." "Your mother isn't seriously ill. She's performing." "How would you know?" "I'm an ICU nurse with 12 years' experience. I've seen hundreds of genuinely critical patients. Your mother is perfectly fine." Brad's face reddened with fury. "How dare you!" She walked away without looking back. At the nurse's station, she found the attending physician and inquired about Carol's diagnosis. The doctor, a young resident, shrugged. "Anxiety attack, slight elevation in blood pressure. Nothing serious. We're discharging her this afternoon." Lisa nodded. Exactly as she'd suspected. Pure theater. That evening Brad came home dark with anger. He threw his keys on the counter and went straight to the kitchen. Lisa was making dinner. He sat heavily at the table. "We can't continue like this. You're destroying our marriage." "I'm destroying it." Lisa turned from the stove. "You and your mother are the ones putting on performances, demanding money, manipulating. We're asking for help. There's a difference between asking and demanding." "Really? Because it feels like demands to me." "Fine." Brad stood up and moved close to her. "Let's be completely honest. Either you start cooperating with this family, or what? Or you'll regret it." Lisa met his eyes steadily. "Are you threatening me?" "I'm giving you fair warning." She set down the spatula and wiped her hands on a towel. "You know what, Brad? Get out." "What?" "Get out of my kitchen, out of my apartment, out of my life. This is our apartment. We're both on the lease, that I pay for with my salary. You want to stay here? Then behave like a decent human being. You don't want to? Leave." Brad grabbed her wrist and yanked her toward him. "You're forgetting yourself." Lisa drove her knee up sharply into his groin, not hard enough to cause serious injury, but enough to make him release her and stagger backward. "I said, don't touch me." She walked to the bedroom, grabbed her go bag she'd prepared days earlier with essentials, documents, and her laptop. Brad sat on the floor, clutching his stomach, looking at her with pure hatred. "You're going to regret this." "We'll see." Lisa left the apartment and never returned. She drove directly to the rental property she'd arranged, where the landlord greeted her kindly and handed over the keys. "Stay as long as you need, dear. I'm happy to help." That first night, Lisa barely slept, lying in an unfamiliar bed, thinking about how her marriage had ended. 5 years with Brad. 5 years that turned out to be built on lies. He'd never really loved her, just used her. And when money appeared, he'd revealed his true character. The next morning, Sarah called. "Are you okay? Brad called me 20 times last night demanding to know where you were." Don't tell him anything. I won't. But be careful, he sounded unhinged. I will be. Lisa went directly to a divorce attorney's office and filed for dissolution of marriage. The attorney, the same sharp-eyed woman from before, nodded approvingly. Smart move. The sooner you finalize this, the better. He's going to fight it. Let him. The law is completely on your side. 2 days later, Brad was served with divorce papers. He called Lisa from an unknown number, screaming that he'd destroy her, that she'd end up with nothing, that she'd be sorry she ever crossed him. Lisa calmly listened to his rant and hung up. Then Carol called from a different number. Sweetie, please, let's not do this. We can work everything out. Maybe I came on a bit strong. It's too late, Carol. But we're family. No, you're strangers to me. Lisa blocked that number too, then changed her own phone number entirely. She informed hospital security that under no circumstances should her estranged husband be allowed near her workspace. A week passed. Quiet. Peaceful. Lisa worked her shifts, returned to her rental, read books, watched shows, and enjoyed the silence and freedom. Then Brad called from yet another number. His voice was calm now, almost gentle. Lisa, we should meet. Talk through the divorce, terms like adults. I have an attorney. Discuss it with him. I want to talk with you directly, person to person, without lawyers making everything adversarial. She considered. Meeting him was risky, but she wasn't afraid of Brad. She knew he was fundamentally a coward. He'd threaten, but wouldn't actually resort to real violence. Fine. A public place. During the day. They met at a busy coffee shop in a shopping center. Brad arrived alone, looking worn down and haggard. She sat across from him and ordered a latte. I'm listening. He sighed heavily and rubbed his face. Lisa, I know I handled things badly. I got caught up in the excitement. Mom was pushing me. Marissa kept asking for help. I just got overwhelmed. And now what? I want us to start over. I promise. No more pressure, no more demands. You make your own decisions about the money. Lisa sipped her coffee and looked into his eyes. I don't believe you. I'm serious. I love you. No, you love my money. That's not fair. It's completely fair. Brad leaned back and his expression hardened. Fine. Have it your way. But I'm telling you right now, I'm going to fight for what I'm entitled to. And my lawyer is very, very good. Good luck with that. Brad stood up, threw a $5 bill on the table, and walked out. Lisa watched him leave, understanding clearly negotiation was impossible. This would be war, and war it became. Brad retained an aggressive divorce attorney who filed counter motions demanding spousal support, compensation for emotional distress, and a portion of the inherited assets based on claims that Lisa had already commingled funds. Lisa's attorney read through the filing and actually laughed. These claims are absurd. Inheritance is separate property under state law. The court won't award him a penny. But he's trying. Of course. He's hoping you'll get scared and offer a settlement. Give him maybe $500,000 just to make him go away. Lisa's jaw tightened. He gets nothing. Good. That's the right answer. The divorce hearing was scheduled for 6 weeks out. Meanwhile, Lisa lived her life. She went to work, saved lives in the ICU, came home, and started thinking about her future. She handled the money intelligently. She purchased a modest 2-bedroom condo in a safe neighborhood for $450,000, registering it solely in her name. She put $2 million into diversified investments. She kept the rest liquid. Not luxury, not ostentation, just security and stability. But one evening, as Lisa returned from a particularly exhausting shift, Brad was waiting outside her building, smoking nervously. We need to talk. We have nothing to discuss. It's about Mom. She's really sick this time. She had a stroke. She's in intensive care. Lisa felt a spike of wariness. When did this happen? 3 days ago. She needs surgery. Expensive surgery. I don't have that kind of money. And you want me to pay for it? Brad nodded, looking genuinely desperate for the first time. I know how we left things, but she's still my mother. Please. Lisa thought carefully. On one hand, Carol was a terrible person who'd made her life miserable. On the other hand, Lisa was a nurse who'd taken an oath to help people. What hospital? Brad gave her the address. The next day, Lisa went there, found the neurologist, and had a conversation. It turned out Carol really had suffered an ischemic stroke. Significant, but not massive. She had left-sided weakness, but was stable. She'd need several months of rehabilitation. What's the cost? The doctor quoted roughly $120,000 for a 3-month stay at a quality rehab facility. Lisa considered, then said, I'll pay for it. On one condition. After she recovers, Carol never contacts me again. Brad, who'd been standing nearby, nodded eagerly. Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. She paid for the treatment and signed the contracts with the rehabilitation center. Carol was transferred there within the week. But a week after that, something unexpected happened. Carol discharged herself against medical advice, not to her own apartment, but to Brad's place, the same one-bedroom he'd taken over after Lisa left. And Brad called her, panicking. I need help. Mom can't take care of herself. She needs round-the-clock care, and I can't afford a home health aide. They want $4,000 a month. I already paid for her rehabilitation. She refused to stay. She wants to be home with family. That's your problem, Brad. Lisa, please. I can't manage this alone. Hire someone. I don't have the money. Then you'll have to figure it out yourself. She ended the call. An hour later, Marissa texted her. Mom is bedridden and Bradley can't handle it alone. You need to help. Why would I help? Because you have the money. That's not a reason. Fine. You'll regret being so cold-hearted. Lisa blocked the number, but she knew something was brewing. They wouldn't leave her alone. And they didn't. 3 days later, Brad lured her into a trap. He called from a blocked number saying he had some of her belongings she'd left behind and wanted to return them. Lisa cautiously agreed to stop by. When she arrived at the apartment, she realized her mistake immediately. Brad was there along with Marissa and Brad's father, Dennis, a quiet man in his early 70s who'd always stayed in the background. And lying in the bedroom was Carol. What's going on here? Brad closed and locked the door behind her. We're going to have a conversation. A serious one. Unlock that door right now. After we talk. Lisa pulled out her phone. Brad snatched it from her hand and tossed it onto the couch. No calling for help. You're going to listen. She looked around. Marissa blocked the bedroom doorway. Dennis sat at the kitchen table. All three watched her with cold determination. Mom's staying here, Brad announced, and you're going to take care of her. Lisa almost laughed. Why would I do that? Because you're her daughter-in-law. It's your obligation. We're getting divorced. I'm nobody to her. The divorce isn't final yet, which means you're still my wife, and you'll help my family. From the bedroom came Carol's weak voice. Lisa, dear, please come here. Lisa reluctantly walked to the bedroom doorway. Carol lay in a hospital bed that had been squeezed into the small room, covered with blankets. The left side of her face drooped slightly. Her left arm lay motionless at her side. Help me, Carol pleaded. I'm so sick. You need professional care. I need you. Lisa turned to leave, but Brad blocked her path. You're staying. You're going to take care of her until she recovers. Absolutely not. You don't have a choice. Marissa and Dennis moved to block the other exit points. We've discussed this, Marissa said coldly. You're going to live here and take care of Mom. It's decided. On what basis would I agree to that? Because you have money and medical experience. And because it's your responsibility as part of this family, I'm divorcing into your family. I don't owe anyone anything. The divorce isn't final. Brad stepped closer. You're still my wife, and you'll do what I tell you. Lisa felt anger rising, but kept her voice level. Let me leave. Now. We'll talk first. There's nothing to discuss. Brad grabbed her arm and forced her to face the bedroom. Look at her. That's my mother, the woman who gave birth to me. She's lying there helpless because I can't afford proper care, and you're sitting on millions refusing to help. Lisa wrenched her arm free. I offered to pay for rehabilitation. You refused on her behalf. Your offer wasn't enough. Then that's your problem, not mine. She moved toward the door. Marissa shoved her backward. You're not leaving until you agree. Get out of my way. Make me. Lisa grabbed her phone from the couch before Brad could react. She'd already dialed 911 before he could stop her. This is Lisa Reynolds. I'm being held against my will at apartment 3B, 247, Cedar Street. There are 3 people preventing me from leaving. Please send police immediately. Brad's face went white. Hang up that phone. Too late. They're already dispatched. Marissa and Dennis exchanged nervous glances. Dennis stood up from the table. Let her go. We don't need cops involved. Brad reluctantly stepped away from the door. Lisa walked past him, collected her phone, and headed for the exit. At the threshold, she turned back. If any of you try to detain me again, I'm filing criminal charges for false imprisonment. We're family. Marissa shouted. Don't you understand that? You're not my family. You're greedy strangers who see me as a cash machine. Lisa left and didn't look back. Her hands trembled as she walked to her car, but she maintained her composure. She sat in the driver's seat and called her attorney. They just tried to physically prevent me from leaving Brad's apartment. File a police report immediately. I don't want to escalate. You need documentation. This behavior could get worse. Protect yourself. Lisa drove to the police station and filed a formal report. The officer took her statement seriously and assured her they'd follow up. She spent the next 3 days in careful routine. Work, home, rest. Brad didn't call. Neither did Carol or Marissa. The silence felt ominous. On the 3rd evening, someone knocked on her door. Lisa checked the peephole. Brad, Marissa, and Dennis. All 3 of them. Lisa, open up. We need to talk. We have nothing to discuss. Open this door or we'll kick it in. Lisa didn't open it. Instead, she called 911 again, putting her phone on speaker. This is Lisa Reynolds again. The same 3 people who detained me are now at my door, threatening to break it down. I need police assistance. The pounding stopped. She heard Brad hiss, "Forget it. This isn't over." They left. Police arrived 10 minutes later. Lisa showed them the earlier report and explained the ongoing harassment. The officers took notes and promised to have a conversation with Brad about his behavior. The next day, Brad sent a text from a new number. "Mom's getting worse. Her blood is on your hands." Lisa didn't respond. 2 days later, another message. "Last chance. Come help or you'll be sorry." Lisa thought about it. Part of her wanted to ignore him completely, but another part wanted to end this once and for all, to confront them and make absolutely clear that she would never submit to their manipulation. She texted Sarah, "I'm going to Brad's apartment. If you don't hear from me in 1 hour, call the police." The apartment door was unlocked when she arrived. Lisa entered cautiously. A light was on in the bedroom. The rest of the apartment was dark. "Brad, come in here." His voice came from the bedroom. Lisa walked slowly down the hallway. Carol lay in the hospital bed exactly as before, but now the smell was overwhelming, sour, fetid, nauseating. Brad sat in a chair beside the bed. Marissa stood by the window. Dennis leaned against the doorframe behind Lisa. Here. Brad gestured at his mother. I haven't bathed her in 3 days. On purpose, so you could see what it's really like. Lisa moved closer despite the smell. Carol lay in soiled adult diapers. The sheets were stained and damp. Her face was flushed, eyes filled with tears. You're torturing a helpless person. I'm showing you reality. This is what happens when you refuse to help. Hire a professional caregiver. Brad stood and moved directly in front of Lisa. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to the bathroom, you're going to get supplies, and you're going to clean her up and change her. Right now. No, I'm not. Yes, you are. Or I'll make you. Try it. He grabbed her shoulder and tried to push her toward the bed. You're going to watch her suffer until you agree. Lisa broke free and stepped back. You're the one abusing her, not me. Marissa approached from the other side. Jesus, Lisa, just wash her. It'll take 5 minutes. Why are you being so stubborn? Lisa looked at the woman in the bed. Carol stared back at her, tears streaming down her face, lips moving as if trying to speak. And in that moment, Lisa understood completely they would never stop. They'd pressure, threaten, humiliate, and use this sick woman as leverage. Carol wasn't a mother to them. She was a tool for manipulation. All right, Lisa said calmly. I'll clean her up. Brad looked satisfied. Finally, some common sense. Lisa walked to the bathroom, filled a basin with warm water, gathered washcloths and towels. She returned to the bedroom and set everything on the nightstand. She pulled back the blanket. The diaper was saturated, leaking onto the sheets beneath. She began unfastening the tapes on the diaper, trying not to gag from the smell. Brad stood over her watching. Marissa moved closer. See? Not so hard. You'll do this every day from now on. Lisa removed the soiled diaper and began cleaning Carol's skin with a warm washcloth. Carol lay completely still except for her eyes, which followed Lisa's every movement. Faster, Brad commanded. Stop dragging it out. Lisa continued silently. She dried the skin, reached for a fresh diaper, and was positioning it when Brad suddenly leaned down and inspected her work. You did a terrible job. She still smells. Do it again. Lisa straightened and looked at him. I did it correctly. No, you didn't. Do it again. Properly this time. Marissa nodded. He's right. You need to be more thorough. Lisa realized what they were doing, deliberately finding fault, trying to humiliate her, trying to grind her down until she submitted completely. Brad leaned closer, pointing. You didn't clean her properly. She still smells. Do it again, he commanded, clearly enjoying the power. Lisa slowly stood up, set down the fresh diaper, and looked her husband directly in the eyes. Her expression was completely calm, cold, empty of emotion. No. What? Brad didn't understand at first. I said no. I'm not doing this. Yes, you are. No, I'm not. He grabbed her wrist, squeezed it painfully. You'll do exactly what I tell you. Lisa yanked her hand free with surprising force and stepped back toward the door. No, I'm done. This is over. Brad's face turned crimson. You're not going anywhere. Yes, I am. Marissa blocked the doorway. You're staying until you agree to help. Move. No. Lisa shoved past her, pushing her aside hard enough that Marissa stumbled. Brad rushed after her, grabbed her shoulder, and spun her around. And then he said the words that would become the final breaking point. Listen here, you bitch. You're going to sign over your $5 million inheritance to my mother and the condo to my father, or we're getting divorced. An ugly nobody like you isn't going to be wanted by anyone except me. He said it with absolute contempt, with certainty. Marissa stood beside him smirking. Dennis nodded in agreement from the kitchen. They were completely convinced they'd won, that she would crumble, sign whatever they wanted, agree to anything just to escape. But they were catastrophically wrong. Lisa looked at her husband for a long moment. Then slowly, very slowly, she smiled. And that smile was colder than winter ice. "Are you finished?" Brad blinked, confused by her reaction. "What?" "I asked if you're finished with your little speech." Lisa took a step forward. Brad instinctively stepped back. "Because now it's my turn to talk." She looked at all three of them. Brad with his greedy, angry face, Marissa with her self-satisfied smirk, Dennis with his passive enablement. "A bitch," Lisa repeated softly. "An ugly nobody." Brad started to interrupt, but she raised one hand and he actually stopped talking. "You know what, Brad? You're absolutely right. I am ugly, ugly to people like you. Because I'm not the pushover you thought you married. I'm not some doormat you can wipe your feet on whenever it's convenient." She took another step forward. Brad retreated again. "You call me a nobody? Fine. But at least I'm not a pathetic parasite who spent 5 years pretending to love someone while actually just waiting for a payday." Brad tried to respond, but the words caught in his throat. Lisa turned to Marissa. "And you flew in from Arizona with your hand out. $150,000 for your business." "What business? You've spent your entire adult life mooching off other people. First your parents, then Brad. And you thought you could mooch off me too." Marissa opened her mouth to argue, but Lisa didn't give her the chance. "And Dennis, you've been silent this whole time, but I know you've been counting my money too. You wanted that condo for yourself, didn't you? Why didn't you earn your own property in 70 years? Dennis looked away, unable to meet her gaze. Lisa returned her attention to Brad. "Now you listen to me very carefully. I am not signing over 1 penny to you, your mother, your father, or your sister. Not 1 cent, because none of you deserve it." Brad's hands balled into fists. "You're going to regret this." Lisa actually laughed, a genuine sound of pure amusement. "Regret it? Regret what? Getting rid of parasites? No, Brad. The only thing I regret is wasting 5 years of my life on a worthless, greedy coward who never actually loved me at all." She walked toward the door. Marissa tried to block her path one more time, but Lisa looked at her with such cold intensity that Marissa actually stepped aside. "You'll end up alone." Brad shouted after her. "Nobody will want you." Lisa paused at the threshold and turned back one final time. "Alone? Perfect. Better alone than with any of you. Better to live in solitude than spend another minute with people who only see a bank account when they look at me. What about Mom?" Marissa gestured desperately toward the bedroom. "She'll die without proper care." "Hire a caregiver with your own money." "We don't have money." "That's your problem. Not mine. Not anymore." Lisa walked out of that apartment and down the stairs. Behind her, she heard Brad yelling, heard Marissa's shrill voice, but she never looked back. On the street, she pulled out her phone and called Sarah. "I'm okay. I'm out. And I'm never going back." "What happened?" "I'll tell you everything later. The important thing is I'm free." At home, Lisa took a long shower, changed into comfortable clothes, made herself tea, and sat by the window, simply looking out at the city lights. Inside, she felt calm. Truly calm for the first time in months. She'd done it. She'd stood up to them. No screaming, no hysteria. Just quiet, firm refusal. She'd put them in their place, definitively. An hour later, Brad's divorce attorney called, suggesting they meet to discuss terms. Lisa declined politely. "All communication goes through my attorney from this point forward. My client is willing to make significant concessions." "I don't need his concessions. The divorce proceeds as filed. No spousal support, no property division, no settlement payments. That's final. Perhaps we could." "No, this conversation is over." The divorce hearing took place 3 weeks later. Brad appeared with his expensive attorney, presenting arguments about contributions to the marriage, emotional suffering, and claims that Lisa had made financial decisions affecting both of them. The judge listened patiently, reviewed all documentation, and rendered her decision. Divorce granted. All inherited assets remain the separate property of Mrs. Reynolds. No spousal support awarded. No division of separate property. Mr. Reynolds receives nothing from the inheritance. This decision is final. Brad tried to object, but the judge was finished. The inheritance was never marital property under state law. This court will not entertain frivolous claims to separate assets. We're adjourned. Brad left the courtroom pale and shaking, shooting Lisa a look of pure hatred. "Everyone's going to know what kind of person you really are," he hissed as they passed in the hallway. "Tell whoever you want. I don't care." He turned and stormed away. Marissa hurried after him, shouting something back at Lisa, but Lisa wasn't listening anymore. The divorce was finalized 30 days later. Lisa received the official decree and felt an enormous weight lift from her shoulders. She was free, legally, completely, finally free. Brad tried to exact revenge in petty ways. He spread rumors at the hospital about how cold and selfish Lisa was, told mutual acquaintances elaborate lies about her refusing to help his dying mother. But Lisa's colleagues didn't believe him. They'd worked with her for over a decade. They knew her character, her compassion, her dedication. Carol was eventually placed in a long-term care facility when Brad and Marissa couldn't manage her needs. She died 6 months later from a second major stroke. Lisa learned about it from an obituary in the local paper. For a moment, she considered attending the funeral, but decided against it. Carol had been a toxic presence in her life. Manipulative, cruel, demanding. Lisa felt no obligation to pay respects. Marissa returned to Arizona. Her fitness studio never materialized. Last Lisa heard, she was working as a receptionist at a hotel. Dennis continued living in his small apartment, occasionally asking Brad for money. But Brad himself was deeply in debt from attorney fees and Carol's medical bills. Brad found a new girlfriend within 6 months, a divorced woman with a substantial settlement from her ex-husband. He married her quickly, but she kicked him out within a year when she realized he was trying to gain control of her assets. Lisa heard about all of this through Sarah, who occasionally ran into mutual acquaintances. She listened and just shook her head. Brad hadn't changed at all. Still hunting for easy money, still looking for someone to exploit. Meanwhile, Lisa built her own life. She continued working in the ICU, saved hundreds of lives, received awards and recognition, and eventually became one of the most respected senior nurses at her hospital. The money lasted because she managed it wisely. She lived in her modest condo, furnished it comfortably but not extravagantly. She invested conservatively and watched her wealth grow steadily. She donated regularly to causes she believed in, a local animal shelter, a children's hospital foundation, a scholarship fund for nursing students. Not millions, but consistent contributions that made real differences. She adopted a cat, an orange tabby she found shivering behind her building one rainy evening. She named him Cooper. He became her constant companion, greeting her after shifts, sleeping curled against her legs, purring contentedly while she read. Dating didn't work out. Lisa tried. She went on apps, accepted setups from well-meaning friends, gave men chances. But every single time, once they learned about her money, something changed. One man asked point-blank about her net worth. Another suggested she invest in his tech startup. A third casually mentioned how nice it would be to quit his job and travel. Lisa ended each relationship immediately. She refused to repeat the mistake she'd made with Brad. Eventually, she decided enough. If she couldn't find someone who loved her for herself rather than her inheritance, she'd rather remain single. Colleagues expressed concern. "You're such a wonderful person," they'd say. "You deserve someone special." They tried setting her up. Lisa politely declined every time. Sarah asked her directly one day, "Do you really want to be alone for the rest of your life?" "I don't know," Lisa answered honestly. "Maybe someday I'll meet someone who sees me instead of my bank balance. But until then, I'm actually happy on my own." And it was true. Lisa was genuinely content. She had meaningful work, financial security, freedom to make her own choices, a peaceful home. She traveled during vacations, nothing extravagant, just quiet trips to places she'd always wanted to see. She read extensively. She took up watercolor painting. She volunteered at the animal shelter on her days off. Sometimes in the evenings, she'd sit by her window with Cooper in her lap and think about the past. About Brad and his transformation from charming boyfriend to greedy manipulator. About Carol and her endless demands. About Marissa and her entitlement. And every time, she reached the same conclusion. She'd made the right choice. Yes, she was alone. Yes, some people thought she was cold. Yes, her personal life was non-existent. But she was free from toxic people, from manipulation, from constant pressure and demands. She could live according to her own values, spend money on what mattered to her, make decisions without anyone's interference. That freedom was worth more than any relationship built on lies and greed. 2 years after the divorce, Lisa was walking home from an evening shift when her neighbor, Mrs. Chun, stopped her in the lobby. "Did you hear? Your ex-husband got married again. 3rd time's the charm, maybe." "I wish him well," Lisa said neutrally. "From what I heard, this new wife has money too. Inheritance from her parents. Sounds familiar, doesn't it?" "That's his life, not mine." Lisa rode the elevator up, unlocked her door, and was immediately greeted by Cooper winding around her ankles. She fed him, changed into sweats, and settled on her couch with a book. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Text message. "Hey, it's Brad. Can we meet up sometime? I'd like to talk." Lisa read the message, blocked the number, and deleted it without responding. Cooper jumped into her lap and began purring. Lisa stroked his soft fur and smiled. "No, Brad. I don't need to talk. I don't need explanations or apologies or whatever you're selling now. You're in my past, and I'm living my present." She opened her book and lost herself in the story. Outside her window, rain began to fall softly against the glass. Somewhere across the city, Brad was probably scheming his next move, calculating his next target. And Lisa was home, in her condo that she'd bought with her own money. With her cat, her book, her tea. Alone, yes, but happy, because she'd learned the most important lesson. To value herself, to refuse to be used, to never tolerate disrespect, to never be afraid of solitude if the alternative is being surrounded by people who cause pain. Godmother Helen had been right all along. Money reveals people's true character. Brad and his family had shown theirs. Greedy, cruel, willing to abuse and manipulate for profit. And Lisa had shown hers. Strong, independent, unwilling to compromise her dignity for anyone. She was proud of that. The years continued. Lisa remained in the ICU, eventually becoming a shift supervisor, then coordinator of critical care nursing. She saved countless lives, mentored younger nurses, became an institution at her hospital. The money remained secure. She'd invested wisely, spent conservatively, and still had more than enough for a comfortable life and generous giving. Her personal life never developed into anything serious. There were a few brief connections, coffee dates that went nowhere, one promising relationship that fizzled when he proposed combining finances after 3 months. Lisa stopped actively looking. She decided that if fate brought someone genuine into her life, wonderful. If not, she was complete on her own. She learned to be happy in her own company. It was her choice, her life, her freedom, and no one could ever take that from her again.